Hi, Charles of SirBookSage here, and this is my book review for Seanan McGuire's Every Heart a Doorway. Now, I really enjoyed this book. It has an old school fantasy sci-fi construct that's been used for a long time in a lot of stories, and that is the concept of doorways, gateways, to other realms that take you to a different world, a different dimension, maybe a parallel world, and it's a construct that's been used for quite a bit. The Chronicles of Narnia is probably one of the most famous uses of it. But there are other things as well, like Stargate in science fiction is an example. One of my favorite authors of all time, Andre Norton, she uses this concept in a few of her books. And even Stranger Things has this concept as well. There's going through some sort of portal to the upside down. But what Seanan McGuire does here, she does a really interesting job of it here. It's a little different. And most of those books that have that sort of construct in it are far more about the journey that's taken on the other side of the doorway, the adventure. And this particular book is not so much about their adventure in these other realms, but what happens to these kids when they come back to our regular real world. And the story opens up with this teenage girl, Nancy, being brought by her parents to this school, the School for Wayward Children. And this woman runs this particular school where she takes in all these troubled kids. Now, most of these parents of these kids think that their children have suffered some severe trauma, like been kidnapped and held hostage and all that kind of stuff. And they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do because no doctor, no hospital, no psychiatrist has been able to help them basically go back to being normal, if there is such a thing. So Nancy is brought to this school by her parents where she's going to stay to see if she can adjust back to normal life. Basically to go back to being the girl she used to be that her parents can't accept her no longer being. And you can see already that the metaphor is for just growing up and changing and becoming your own person, and parents and children, like these wide gaps and chasms opening up between parents and their kids when parents no longer see their little children anymore and don't know how to handle and don't know how to deal with it. But this book also mainly deals with trauma and its aftermath, because each of these kids has gone into some fantastical realm, a realm that's drawn them because of who they are and what their personality type is like. There's like a Candyland, there's a Fairyland, there you can run on rainbows, and there's unicorns, but there's also werewolves and vampires and like mad scientists and all sorts of like crazy stuff. And there's even like the Lord of the Underworld in a different land. And depending upon who you are and what your personality type, what that core element in you is, that's kind of the door that will open up and take you to a place that's going to take that element and it's going to magnify it and sharpen it and fine tune it. And you're going to have that core part of you turned on to 1,000,000. So when you end up leaving that world and coming back to regular old Earth, how do you turn that off? And that's part of what these kids are going through. They don't know how to be children anymore. They don't know how to turn off what these worlds have done to them. And they can't pretend to be normal anymore. And to them, that world is normal now. Being 150% of that part of who they are is how they're so conditioned now by these other fantastical realms to act. They don't know any other way to be, and they don't really want to be any other way. And they're all stuck in this place, sort of kind of coexist with each other. But each and every last one of them is terrified that their world has rejected them and they will never find their way back. Because what they all want is to not be cured, to not be normal kids, to not go back to who they were before they went to these realms. They want to go back to these worlds and be able to be fully, completely who they really are, which the regular world and their parents and society will never allow. And the rules of our world make it impossible. And the book also deals with issues of gender roles, gender identities. You get a lot of that. There's a lot of variety here. amongst the personalities of these kids. And each one of them has come back, and each one of them has sort of come back to the regular world for a different reason. Some broke the rules that have been thrown out and banned. Others have decided to come back on their own and now regret their choice. Still others were told to go back to the real world just to make sure you really are ready to give that world up and be here in this realm forever. So there's all of that plays on each kid as to how they left and why they left. And again, there's that fear that they're never going to fit back in and that they're never going to get back to their world. And Seanan McGuire has developed a pretty intricate system here where there seems to be like 4 main quadrants of kinds of realms. And then there's all these like subgroups that exist within each realm. And part of what the school does is by talking to you and learning, getting you to open up and tell your experiences, the school figures out, okay, you went to this world with this, and this. So then they know, okay, this group can't coexist in our school with this group over here. They're just 2 complete polar opposites personality-wise, and they're going to crash and clash and conflict quite a bit. So a large part of what the woman running the school does is she's always trying to kind of figure out where everyone fits and how to make them fit with each other. It's like a giant puzzle, and a puzzle that keeps shifting and changing. So all of those elements, there's really a lot here in a book that's just a novella. It's only about 176 pages long or something. And Seanan McGuire manages to pack a lot into this short space. And then, of course, there's a central mystery that starts up shortly after Nancy arrives and starts meeting these kids. And there is a horror element. This is not just a fantasy story. It's certainly not a kid's fantasy story. And there's very much a horror element to it. I have not read The Magicians, and I have not read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. But I've seen the first season of The Magicians, and I've seen the BBC adaptation of Jonathan Strange. And there's some little elements of each of those that I see here in this story. And not mimicking or copying in any way, but just, again, these are thematic things that you see used from time to time in stories. And they're done well here, but there is a horror element. And I know I've seen some people, since I've been paying attention to this book on BookTube, I've been kind of thrown off by that horror element because it was unexpected. And I enjoyed it, so I kind of knew it was coming, so maybe that helped. It didn't come out of the blue for me. But it's certainly not a kid's book at all. It deals with pretty harsh stuff and deals, again, with things like trauma and post-traumatic stress. But it's all kind of a metaphor in a way for what it's like to grow up and the world's expectations on you and your own expectations on not even knowing who the hell you are and trying to chart a course in between what your parents want and school wants and society wants and your aunts and uncles wants and everybody wants, and then you're trying to even figure out who the hell you are. So this construct here is taking all that and really accentuating it all and putting it in this sort of fantastical construct to really begin to tackle and deal with. And again, really, really well done on Seanan McGuire's part. So now, the one singular gripe I have about the book is the finale. And it's not so much what happens, but it's wrapped up like way too quick. It's like, okay, you go turn around the corner. Oh, there's the central mystery. Oh, that's what's happening. Okay, oh, bye-bye now, over. Go home, bye-bye. It's like, what? You didn't even get a chance to like even think about what happened. Even think about the discovery at the end of what's been going on. And that was my only real gripe with it. It was just like, in an instant, the story's done. So I would have liked her to just have spent a little more time, even just a couple more pages on the end. But that's my only gripe. That keeps it from being a 5-star book for me. But that's just my own personal reaction to it. But 4 to 4.5 stars, solid, absolutely. I will definitely be reading Down Among the Sticks and Bones. And I know there's a third one that's coming out soon. And I don't know if it's just a trilogy or not, or if there's more books planned beyond this. If you do know, you can drop me a comment below. I definitely want to know what your thoughts were on this book if you have read it. And I would highly recommend reading it if you haven't yet, particularly if you like any of the elements that I've kind of brought up. And Seanan McGuire is a really, really good writer too. Her writing style here just really sucks you right in and pulls you right along. She does a really good job. So again, 4 to 4.5 stars, solid, absolutely, really, really well done. I was very, very, very pleased with this book. It definitely met my expectations and exceeded them a little. But the only thing keeping it from a 5-star is that the ending could have used even like 2 more pages. But that's it. So I am going to wrap it up here. I am Charles, SirBookSage. Happy reading.